another one gets the critical hit and actually knocks Porygon out. Without that crit, Porygon may have survived. Hello friends, my name is Frankie, and welcome back to Gotta Drag 'Em All, which is my critically acclaimed crossover series that pits the bottom queens of an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race to battle it out in a 6v6 Pokemon battle to see who sashays and who shantes. Now, last episode, we actually saw another divergence from the original series as Trixie Mattel won her battle and sent Pearl packing. As a little reminder, this is what our cast of queens looks like as compared to the original season, with Tempest, Jasmine, and Trixie all still in the competition, while Candy, Kennedy, and Pearl are out of here. So, having said that, let's see how this little shakeup in the cast might impact the results of episode 5, the Despy Awards. So, in the original episode, Rue splits up the girls into teams of 2. The teams were Jaden and Kennedy, Pearl and Max, Ginger and Candy, Violet and Fame, and Katya and Mrs. Kasha Davis. To keep things easier for us, I'll just swap in the queens we have based on who ended up staying over the other queen in their battles, right? So instead of Jaden and Kennedy, we'll have Jaden and Jasmine. Instead of Pearl and Max, we have Trixie and Max. Instead of Ginger and Candy, we have Ginger and Tempest. Meanwhile, the teams of Violet and Fame and Katya and Kasha remained the same. In the original episode, Pearl and Max ended up winning the challenge even though Pearl was missing for some time when they were supposed to be writing their jokes. I think there was something on her face or something. And since Trixie is a comedy queen, right, I would still give the win to Team Max here. Now, here's where things might get a little interesting. I'm actually going to call Team Ginger as the would-be safe team here instead of the original Team Jaden. I think without Kennedy, Jaden would falter a bit. Meanwhile, Ginger and Tempest, I think, could work quite well together. So, let's say Rue would actually call Katya, Miss Fame, and Jaden as safe, therefore leaving Mrs. Kasha Davis, Violet, and Jasmine as the new bottom 3. And from here, since Jasmine has been in the bottom once already, I'm gonna make the call here and say that Violet would be safe and put Mrs. Kasha Davis and Jasmine in the bottom to duke it out. With the bottom 2 queens of the episode set, we can move on to what their teams look like. Now, of course, we've already seen Jasmine in the bottom once before, so we already know what her team looks like. And if you have no idea what I'm yapping about, you should go watch episode 3 to get the full backstory behind why I chose these Pokemon for her team. But since episode 3 originally aired, I started sharing more about each Pokemon, including their stats, abilities, and items. So since Jasmine's team didn't get that sort of love before, I'll do it now. So, starting off, we have Machamp, who has pretty good stats overall, focusing on big physical damage. Its ability is Guts, which gives it a 1.5 times power boost if it's statused with an item like Flame Orb, which will try to burn itself on the end of each turn. This gives it really good synergy to dish out a lot of big damage. Next, Sudowoodo is also physically strong, but has a bit more bulk as well with a decently high defense and HP stat. Its ability is Sturdy, which means that even if it were to normally go down in one hit from a move, it will survive with 1 HP, giving it a good setup to use Explosion. Next, we have Muck, who continues the trend of being a decently bulky physical attacker, pairing well with its ability Poison Touch, giving more of its moves the chance to poison its target. Next, we have Electros, who clearly also did not miss the physical attacking memo with stats like these, but Electros goes one step further by holding the Choice Band, making its attacks do 1.5 times damage. Next, Pheromosa finally snaps the trend on Jasmine's team and is instead a super fast special attacker. Coupled with the choice specs to make its special attacks do 1.5 times the damage, it becomes a nightmare to deal with. Lastly, we have Hoopa, who again is a special attacker and actually isn't holding an item because of its ability Magician, which lets it steal its target's item. With that out of the way, let's take a look at Mrs. Kasha Davis's team, who is making her debut as a bottom queen this season. Starting off with the runways, we have her entrance, spring, fall, and nude looks on the left, all from episode 1, which is kind of wild. On the right, we have her jet set, bearded, green, Despy, and conjoined twins look, and of course, her finale look in the center there. In terms of Pokemon, we start off with Pangoro, who I chose based on her jet set and bearded looks with more of that black and white theme. Pangoro is decently bulky and is a physical attacker with a high attack stat and a decent HP stat. It further powers up its attack stat by holding that choice band. Next, we have Superior, because it's green and is sort of shaped like a dollar sign, like Kasha's green runway. Superior's speed is really its shining glory, coupled with its ability Contrary, which means when it uses an ability like Leaf Storm, it gains a 2x special attack boost instead of a decrease. I chose Delcatty next, mostly because Delcatty to me has always given off like a motherly aura for some reason, and I thought Mrs. Kasha Davis gave off, a similar vibe. Delcatty's stats overall are pretty meh across the board, and its ability isn't all that great either. Its main draw, I think, is the ability to use the move Fake Out, and help support Kasha's team by potentially healing other Pokemon with Wish. Next, I chose Mr. Mime, because there wasn't a Mrs. Mime that I could choose, so this is the best Mr. and Mrs. combo that I could find. Mr. Mime is great on the special side, both offensively and defensively. Its ability Filter means that it takes less damage from super effective attacks, and its item Citrus Berry helps it give it a little bit more survivability. Next is Porygon 2, but this isn't just any Porygon. It's a Pori Gin and Tonic, because there's always time for a cocktail. Porygon 2 is again a good special attacker, and since it's holding an Eviolite, it also becomes quite bulky. Lastly, we have Furfrou, because the Davis part of Mrs. Kasha Davis's name is the name she gave her first pet, a white poodle, and Furfrou is literally exactly that, so it's perfect. Furfrou's stats are also pretty mid at first glance, but its ability Fur Coat automatically doubles its physical defense stat. Coupled with Rocky Helmet means Kasha will want to swap Furfrou in on physical attacks whenever possible. Overall, Kasha's team is pretty threatening, with bulky special attackers like Mr. Mime and Porygon. Superior is a speed demon who can dish out some super powerful attacks. Meanwhile, Pangoro and Furfrou are both more physically oriented, with Delcatty again as more of that support Pokemon. So with that, let's welcome to the stage our trainers. Mother Roo, over to you.
Jasmine Masters. I'm sorry, my dear, but you are up for elimination. Mrs. Kasha Davis. I'm sorry, my dear, but you are up for elimination. Two queens stand before me. Ladies, this is your last chance to impress me and save yourself from elimination. Time has come.
Pokemon battle.
For your life. Good luck, and don't it up.
Kasha leads with Delcatty. Meanwhile, Jasmine leads with Vermosa. Delcatty goes for that fake out and immediately does 27% to Vermosa. Knowing that Jasmine has a number of different options, Kasha actually goes for the Protect to see what Jasmine wants to do, which is Focus Blast. Now Kasha doesn't want to take that with Delcatty, so swaps in Mr. Mime, who is able to take that Focus Blast pretty well. At this point, Jasmine swaps in Electros, who takes a Psyshock from Mr. Mime. Kasha brings in Furfrou, who gets hit with a critical knockoff, but Electros takes a little bit of damage from that Rocky Helmet in the process. Jasmine now swaps in Sudowoodo, who takes a Toxic from Furfrou. Kasha goes for the Iron Tail, which does some pretty big damage to Sudowoodo. Meanwhile, Sudowoodo retaliates with an Earthquake, but actually misses out on the KO, unfortunately. Furfrou goes for another Iron Tail and is able to take Sudowoodo out. Jasmine brings in Vermosa and goes for the Bug Buzz on Furfrou, taking it out, tying up the game at one down Pokemon apiece. Kasha brings in her Porygon 2. Jasmine, not wanting to take any hit, brings in Machamp, who is able to take that Tri-Attack, but gets paralyzed, which is actually a big deal. Kasha brings in Mr. Mime to take a close combat, and it barely survives on 1% health, which will trigger that citrus berry, helping to restore just a little bit of health. Meanwhile, Mr. Mime will go for that fake out on the Machamp just for that extra little chip damage. Afterwards, Machamp goes for that bullet punch to take Mr. Mime out. Kasha brings in Serperior at this point and goes for that big Leaf Storm, which will take Machamp out and give Serperior a special attack boost. Jasmine brings in Pheromosa, but Kasha swaps Porygon 2 in. Jasmine's Bug Buzz does 45% to the Porygon. And another one gets the critical hit and actually knocks Porygon out. Without that crit, Porygon may have survived and actually been able to go for attack, but Kasha now brings in Delcatty and gets a fake out critical hit on Pheromosa, bringing it down to 35%. Another Bug Buzz here from Pheromosa, and Delcatty goes down. Kasha's down to her last 2 Pokemon now. Pangoro comes out, and the Bullet Punch is able to finally knock out that Pheromosa. Jasmine at this point brings in Muck, and Kasha swaps in Serperior. I don't know why she would do that, because Serperior is going to go down to a single Poison Jab from Muck. Kasha brings Pangoro back in as her last Pokemon, goes for that knockoff, almost knocking Muck out in the process, but it doesn't, and Muck goes for the Poison Jab and gets a poison on Pangoro, who is now on a timer. Pangoro goes for the knockoff and takes Muck out, but will take a little bit of poison damage in the process. Jasmine brings in Electros, who goes down to a critical knockoff. But again, Pangoro is going to take a little bit more poison damage. Jasmine's last Pokemon is Hoopa, who will actually end the game right there with an Energy Ball. Pangoro goes down, and Jasmine wins.
Jasmine Masters. Shantae, you stay. Mrs. Kasha Davis. Sashay away.
Oh my gosh, y'all. I really thought Kasha had a chance at winning that battle until she brought in Serperior on the Muck. That was definitely a major misplay on Kasha's part, and it probably cost her the entire battle. Regardless, it was still so close, considering Jasmine has 2 legendaries on her team, and Kasha has Delcatty and Furfrou. So I think she did pretty good, all things considered, so props to Yamama. But who did you think was the MVP or most valuable Pokemon of the battle? For me, it had to have been Pheromosa, like hands down. That super high speed stat coupled with such a high attack stat make it such a menace to deal with, and honestly, I kind of feel sorry for any team who has to go up against Jasmine's in the future. It's not going to be easy. If you're enjoying this season so far and you want to see more, all you need to do is like this video down below and subscribe to the channel. You know, we're really getting down and deep into the season now with 5 queens who have sashayed away, and another one coming up as we get to episode 6, coming in 2 weeks to a theater near you, where we will dive in to the Rue Hollywood stories, so don't miss out. Bye!